been the third most popular grape so far, and that was the first stage one. So 7,500 vines planted. Has anybody got any idea what the hell are these red tubes? Because this is obviously a lot of people as they drive past or cycle past are asking questions about it. Any clues what they may be?
Protection.
Frost protection?
Well, this frost protection, what we've got at the moment, what we planted last year, these are a very cheap version of a protector that will be, we're bringing in a plastic one that will come up to here next year. So when these are planted in the ground, they're only about yay big, the cuttings. So we have to protect them from rodents or any animal that wants to come in and have a nibble on it. What you'll also see protectors out in a conventional vineyard is to stop the nasty chemicals that they spray in herbicides, as an example, from killing the vines as well as the weeds around it. We don't have to have that as an issue or a challenge here, because a lot of 90% of our sprays are going to be the biologicals that you'll see in the vermicompost lab, which is basically all based around compost and compost teas. You'll hear the term LBA. That's what we call compost tea, liquid biological amendments, just a fancy name for compost tea. We will utilise, like a lot of organic farms, bio amendments. So that could be a biofertilizer or a biopesticide, insecticide or a herbicide. But what we're looking for all the time is a bioproduct that enhances the soil quality. And believe it or not, there's a movement towards that now. One of the herbicides, which is again an innovative product that came out about 2 years ago, came from Australia. A lot of work's, really good work's been done in Australia in the regenerative market, and what that does, it desiccates and dehydrates the weeds when you spray it on, and that kills the weed, and it automatically blows all the nutrients in the weeds into the soil, so it feeds the biology. So we're getting a double whammy. Eventually, what we will have in here, because at the moment, again, this has been overmowed while we were setting the vineyard in place. What we've recently planted in here is a multi-seed cover crop. So again, people talk about the biodiversity of regenerative farming being really critically important. Monocrop is not good for the soil. There's an interaction with multi-species that you need to have to build up the soil quality and the nutrient quality. So what we've done in here, once we've planted the vines in, we've come in behind it and planted a multi-seed cover crop in here. And again, we'll be experimenting continuously. What we've had out in the fields until we just crimped them for planting was 16 to 18 seed cover crop mixes. Legumes, brassicas, we've got cereal grains in there, you've got things like nitrogen fixes for crimson clover or hairy vetch, compact busters with the daikon radish. So we dial everything in. I don't regard myself as an expert in any area, but I know a lot of experts. So if we've got a specific area that we want to focus on and optimize, we reach out to people and either bring them here to work with us. So people like Dane, who's our farm manager here, our shepherd, our vineyard laydown, and Colin, who's his able-bodied assistant and right-hand man. Dane's going to explain when we get out to the sheep his intense knowledge on livestock, not just livestock, but regenerative livestock, and the critical part that plays in a regenerative vineyard as well. So what the cover crops are going to do is act on driving the biology and the nutrients into the ground interactively and trustfully, synergistically with the vines. What we don't want is that, or whether it's Mother Nature's cover crop, which most people call weeds, or our own cover crops, we don't want them to rob the nutrients and the water from our vines. Over time, as we build up the quality of the soil, what we're also building up is something called soil organic carbon or soil organic matter. And at the moment, in some of our fields, we've got less than 1%. Some of these fields here, because this used to be a dairy, we've got around 3.5%. Over time, as we continue to do the regenerative process with the methodology that I've just referenced, the cover crops and getting the sheep out to fertilise naturally, we'll be building that organic matter up at a rate of probably around 1% a year. That's the goal. Each 1% that we put on, believe it or not, will put 25,000 gallons of water holding capacity an acre. So over time, we're looking to build up on an acre basis between 100 and 125,000 gallons of water holding capacity. So as you can see from the pond, we've got an irrigation pond that's tied into our irrigation system. This will be used in time purely for fertigation. not irrigation. We will, because we've got climate, and getting into the politics of climate disruption, climate warming, whatever you want to call it, we're going to have extreme weather events. We're already experiencing that. So the irrigation system that we've put a lot of money into is our backup plan. In an extreme weather event, if we need to, we'll utilize it. But for 95% of the time, maybe greater than that, we can pull the water out of the ground. And what that means is that the vine then is pulling water when it needs it. We're not got it on a timer or on a schedule. When it needs water, it draws it from the ground directly underneath at whatever rate that individual vine needs. And there's 7,000 vines. When we fill this farm up over the next 2.5 years, we're going to end up with about 130,000 vines. So dialing in the water levels and the nutrient levels at that stage is just nigh on impossible. So you've got to blanket apply all these things, which means that the vine's not getting its optimal health requirements, which means that we're not going to get the best fruit off it or the best yields off it. So everything's dialed in, as we said in the presentation, to the soil. It's turning the dirt that we once had into this rich, biological, health-filled soil with the right fungal to bacterial ratios, which Laura will cover as we go in. So this is a part, so these chambers are reference, a part of that. Again, we like to, as much as regenerative agriculture, as we said at the start, is about a return to nature. It's dancing with Mother Nature again instead of battling with her. We're not averse to using what they're also. The other thing that's sweeping into agriculture in the last few years has been what they call precision agriculture. So there's a lot of major investment. This is a multi-trillion global industry, and there's a wake-up call now to realise that as the population grows by another 3 billion over the next years up to 2050, that we need to feed those extra people, and preferably feed them with health and nutrition, not just dead calories and chemicals. So the precision agriculture is bringing in technology. That could be AI robotic pickers, which we will have here on test next year, and we'll trust, subject to them being rolled out. What you'll see in here is a regenerative, back to nature sheep that will do all our the grazing. Obviously means that we don't have to mow. So we haven't got tractors, we haven't got labour, we haven't got diesel coming through here. We've got sheep naturally running through, and I'll let Dane and Colin cover the rotational element of how we graze when we go over to the sheep. The other thing that they're doing, obviously, as they go along, is weeding. So they'll be the ones, once we get the vines up to the wire and the trunks are of sufficient lignification that the sheep won't want to eat the vines, at that point, then we've got them doing our weed eating as well, so we don't even have to spray bioherbicides or turn the soil over, because we don't want to be tilling this, because this is where the action is. In addition to that, the mastication of when they chew is something that's been around for eons. So when they're eating the cover crops, not only are they fertilizing it as they go, the mastication, would you believe, and the saliva is stimulating, it's sending chemical messages down into the root structures of the cover crops. There's something up there is eating, so that expands and accelerates the regeneration of that growth. So the livestock integration is absolutely vital, which is why having Dane come in, Dane was at one of the top, probably the leading at the time, regenerative vineyard in, not just in California, but on the planet. And they were cutting edge in all the different areas of regenerative that you're hearing about today, but specifically the livestock integration. So Dane was a key part of setting that up for them. And how many sheep did you have at Tablas?
450.
450 sheep. And how many do you expect once we get this up to 1,000 acres? How many sheep would be here?
Anywhere from 600 to 1,000.
So it's an increase. We've got about 250 at the moment.
We just harvested, so we're right around the 200 mark.
All right, so we've got around 200. So they will grow organically as we grow the vineyard out as well. What these are, therefore, is the precision side of what we're doing here. We're going to have robotic pickers who can they'll be coming through. It's machine learning, it's videos of cameras will come through, and they'll be checking the grapes as they go through. And very quickly that will machine learn it, teach itself what's ripe and what's not, and they'll be picking at exactly the right time. And they will be scheduled to come through. So they've literally got robotic arms that go out and pick the fruit and drop it into a cart, and then those carts will go back to our processing plant up there. So we'll have a cool balance of sheep being in the vineyard, but also these AI robotics. And again, the intention behind that is to balance how we put the vital nutrients back into the soil and build out the environmental support, but also leading that towards making a profitable farm so we can invest in this and take it to the next level. In addition to that, we'll look at implementing things like in-field monitors. So in each block we'll have a monitor that will tell us what the weather situation's like, what the pests and the disease challenges that you might have that we can do off the back of that. That'll be rigged into our phone so it can send alerts out anytime. It'll be plugged into the irrigation system so we have a burst or anything. That'll give us on-point access, particularly as we build this out across 150 acres and then onto the 4 sites that we're looking to expand out to. It's important that we've got a finger on the pulse of how the operation is running. These are called OptiGrow chambers. This was as a result of an Israeli lady, believe it or not, an Israeli scientist who's based out of Tel Aviv, who's been working on red light photosynthesis optimization, like Jeff Bloodworth has been working on seedless muscadine. Nuclear fusion time, basically. So she's done some phenomenal research that's proven out of all the spectral colours of the rainbow that create that incredible burning things light. The key optimal light source is red light spectrum, which is why these are red lines. So what these at the top are, these cones are literally receptacles for gathering the sunlight. You'll see on here it's got like a diamond indentation. As the sunlight enters into here, it bounces off these diamond indentations so we can get the photosynthesis down to the leaves inside. What this does as a result of that, it doesn't just accelerate the growth naturally, so it's not an unnatural unbalance, it's a natural acceleration and build of that vine, but it's also at the same time building and growing out the roots. What we've also found from research in the last 5 years is that what Laura referenced is the criticality of fungal matter to a healthy soil and a healthy crop, and healthy farming for that matter, is something called arbuscular mycorrhiza funga. That's the fungal mass that builds around the rhizosphere and the root structure. So with healthy roots, you're going to get a much better access to the nutrients in the soil and drawing that out, plus the water that's underground as well. With AMF, you can times that by 10 because it just builds the root structure out, and all that then is feeding the microbes, which then feed all the nutrients and water into the vines. What this does is create the healthiest possible root structure as well, and they've proven that out by something called ground radar, which they can look underneath. What we're going to be doing is a little bit of excavation because this is still an exploration. We're doing a lot of laboratory in-house and out-of-house with these. So we put 70 of these out last year, and they were very successful in how they looked and how they performed. That allowed me to then drive this out to 350. So I've got 350 grow chambers here, and I've got 50 scattered across the top, so we can look at it in a different environment. Next year we're going to have 2,200 of these. So they are not cheap, but we're not looking at cheapness, we're looking at value. These are recyclable plastic and they'll last for 15 years. So the cost of these amortized over 15 years make them actually cheaper than the grow chambers, the plastic chambers, the plain plastic, non-recyclable plastic chambers that we'll be putting out in the field this year. And what they're telling us, and this is why I'm not going full blast on these yet, is that can bring fruit production forward by 1 year. If it brings fruit production forward by 20%, these will pay for themselves at a rate of, we're going to be dropping 30,000 vines in those fields across the way next year, and then the plan is to drop a minimum of 30,000 every year. These only go in on year 1, so you put them in year 1 and then you rotate them through your estate. So as we grow the estate out, these could potentially go behind it, but they've got to prove themselves out. The added bonus of this is that one thing with sheep is that they quite like vine leaves because they're very sweet. And until, as I said, the vines lignify, we can't put sheep out here. It was the biggest disappointment with bringing Dane in, was when he announced, well, you're not putting sheep in here for probably 3 years, do we think? 3-4 years?
At least in the growing season. We're going to be able to get in here now that they're dormant. We can go through the
exactly,
season.
so they're not eating the leaves. In California, they have to wait 4 to 5 years. And sheep is becoming a huge thing. It's driven by New Zealand. They were the trendsetters and the innovators in that area. Not surprisingly, they've got great wine and vineyards out there. They've also got more sheep per head than population. So somebody very smartly about 15 years ago put the two together, and now it's sweeping across California. There's not that many vineyards on the East Coast that have got what Dane's provided for us here. So this is an experiment that we're looking to test. Again, everything's a laboratory. The dealing with nature, as you know, if you're a farmer, it's an art and a science, and it's about dialing it in. We're in the optimization business. We want to optimize the profit, but we want to do it in a way that optimizes the environment that we're growing in as well, and we combine all those together. Any questions at this stage?
Were
Yes,
these
ma'am.
particularly designed for vineyards?
Yeah, so OptiHarvest is the company that produced these out in California. They teamed up with Seafish is called. This is a doctor out in Tel Aviv. They do for about, I think it's about 6 different, mainly specialty crops. So you can have shields for like these avocados and pecans and all sorts of things. These were designed specifically for vines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Why drip irrigation as opposed to subterranean?
I'll let Dane answer that one.
I think I don't have experience with subterranean,
Okay.
but
Which is usually the answer. So yeah. I
yeah.
understand.
If I were to guess, though, based on my experience with this is much easier to maintain. It's up above ground. I can fix it up there.
Doesn't get clogged as easily.
It doesn't get clogged as easily. I can pull out those drippers and replace them. A short answer is I've never seen a vineyard that didn't use them. You know,
Well,
so there must be a reason.
and I'm aware of that. From California,
Okay.
know half the damn vintners out there, and I've been seeing again a trend now going down to subterranean because of what they've been able to do in Texas.
That's interesting.
And
That's
again,
what's
the issue, again, clogging, et cetera, et cetera. Seems to be worse than what they're doing now subterraneanly. So, and again, and I've been working with the Irritech people out of Italy that seem to be foremost in it, and the results are impressive. I mean, the savings of water, again, California, I mean, what is it, $20,000 for an acre foot of water nowadays?
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous. Out here, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
But still, especially if you're going with fertilization, etc., going to the root base as opposed to dropping and watching it possibly dry out, turn into a salt, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
on the way down. So I just wondered.
Again, we'll keep our finger on the pulse. We're not sold or bought into any one thing. There's certain things that will remain all the way through, but other things we've always got a finger on the pulse on innovation. It's one of the great things with Greg.
Yeah.
He didn't mention it in there. He's a multi-generational farmer, initially from Illinois. So father, grandfather, great-grandfather, row cropper with a little bit of livestock, over 700 acres. Then he realised, like a lot of farmers, that there wasn't an awful lot of money to be made in that business, and he decided to go out into the world and make his fortune. So he ended up going into banking and then being a VC, but he's now come full circle back and he's returned to his roots. And then we uncovered regenerative farming along the way, and we collectively realised there's a major opportunity here. And we feel very blessed. We've got this amazing fruit with amazing technology, and we've got great people here working on this now. So we want to do something not just for our benefit, we want to do something that can inspire other farmers to come into this. That there's a way to not just make profit again and take all this amazing pressure off the shoulders, but actually start enjoying farming again as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits to it. All right, if there's no further questions here, let's go and see the exciting thing, which is sheep.